Protestant traditions. These weren't myths, they were scripture, held sacred for centuries, and Ethiopia never let them go. Why does this matter? Because inside these texts are details the West never wanted to admit. Let's start with the Book of Enoch. Chapter 46 gives a vision of the coming Messiah. There I saw one who had a head of days, and with him was another whose face had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of grace, and his hair was like wool, and his skin like bronze burned in a furnace. Sound familiar? It's nearly identical to Revelation 1:14-15, which says of Christ, his hair was white like wool, his feet like fine brass as if burned in a furnace. Now pause. Hair like wool, skin like bronze, not blonde, not porcelain, not Western. The Ethiopian Bible never erased these descriptions, but in Western Christian art, they were painted over, distorted, sanitized. Because if Jesus looked like that, then everything we associate with power, purity, and divinity would shift. So why were these books removed from the Western canon? That's the question theologians have tiptoed around for centuries. Some say it was due to lack of apostolic authorship. Others say they were too mystical or theologically confusing. But let's be honest, they weren't removed because they were wrong. They were removed because they were too right, too clear about the identity of God's people, too bold in their descriptions of Messiah, too aligned with African truth. The issue was never historical accuracy, it was control. When European empires began reshaping Christianity, they didn't just pick and choose scriptures. They curated an image of God, of salvation, of chosenness. And any book that reminded people that holiness looked like Africa was quietly set aside. But Ethiopia kept them, high in the mountains, guarded by priests, written in Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic tongue that shares roots with Hebrew. While Europe held inquisitions and rewrote theology, Ethiopia remembered. There's an ancient Ethiopian legend that says, when Rome burned Jerusalem, we did not forget. When they rewrote the scrolls, we rewrote the memories. When they painted Christ pale, we painted him as he was. And that's not just folklore. Archaeologists have uncovered illustrated manuscripts from Ethiopia centuries old depicting Black Mary cradling a black Messiah, prophets with curly hair and copper-toned skin, angels with African features, wings, and fire in their eyes. These images weren't political, they were faithful, because in their Bible God looked like them. And that wasn't heresy, it was heritage. Now let's return to the core of this part. The 88 books of the Ethiopian canon are not just longer, they're richer. They contain timelines, genealogies, spiritual technologies, visions, and covenants that place Africa not on the outside but at the center of the story. They show that God didn't begin in Rome, that Messiah didn't look like a Caesar, that divine wisdom didn't wear a powdered wig, it walked barefoot.